stuck between a libertarian and a Republican? Welcome to Publitarian Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Publitarian Podcast. We are rolling into episode number 67, and this is a continuation of my interview with Vegan Patriot. So we're going to pick right up where we left off, and we were talking about the challenges that the American healthcare system is facing and all the complexities therein. Here we go. And I think that's part two of the problem as well, is that I'm not giving doctors a pass on everything, but I mean, I think more so you're going into that profession to make money and not, so much care for people. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but what I'm saying is it's enticing to go, well, if I give them all these tests they don't really need or all these pills they don't really need, I can bill the insurance company for each one of these things that I do. I'm just saying, as a human being, if you're a doctor, you put yourself in their shoes and you look at that and you go, yeah, well, I might do that too.
And that's exactly what you have to do, is you have to look at that from that perspective, because ultimately, I don't really think doctors have bad intent, and I think that most of them do, obviously, ultimately, what, community-based capitalism is you make enough to sustain your business and sustain yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of vet clinics that are on that boat where it's like, at first I didn't get it until I was more in the industry, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, so people have to pay up front, because if these vet clinics don't get paid, they go under. Right. And that makes sense. The problem with human medical is that they have progressed past the whole small business end into a monopolized situation in a lot of ways.
Right.
Cleveland Clinic, I have this theory with the Rust Belt, where I'm from. I'm convinced, if you look at just Flint, Michigan, I have the place I'm from, the city I'm from in Ohio, it actually has one of the cleanest water supplies in the state of Ohio. But Flint had hormonal issues, I think birth, fatalities, issues with just women and their hormones. And it had to do with the lead in the pipes. And it makes you think you're on the East Coast, right? So all of the stuff in that area, it's very old. And a lot of the standards for things asbestos, it doesn't, and I know asbestos can be everywhere. It's, it was only banned, in the 80s or something like that. But
yeah, I had an uncle die from cancer because of that.
Mesothelioma.
Because he was an electrician that, worked around the crap all the time.
So if there's this infrastructure weakness that we have where we're not updating and maintaining things that are clearly causing problems, to me, it's just because I'm in a cleaner part of the Rust Belt, where I'm from, there's still old infrastructure that needs to be updated. It hasn't been. And so it just makes you wonder, if there's trends. And I make a joke about Ohio and Michigan, because we have really good medical facilities, and it kind of makes you want to wonder why. Well, you have a lot of people that are sick. So there's that.
That would meet that need, right?
The air quality, and the Rust Belt is called the Rust Belt for a reason. And I think even just snow in Ohio, at least in the Cleveland metro where I'm from, one of my political friends described Cleveland as Gotham compared to Columbus or Cincinnati, and they're kind of right. But it's the snow. It's and you've probably experienced this too, but I don't know. Do you guys get snow where you're at? I'm not sure about that.
Maybe once every 20 years. When you say cold, I'm thinking cold sand.
Okay, yeah, no. So I'm thinking snow, and people out west that have never been that far east don't understand this either. And I'm including Boston. I'm including the actual New England states too. The snow, it's not white and fluffy and pretty because it's covered in oil and dirt and industrial shit. So, if that's going to go on the snow, what's going in people's lungs? What were people exposed to as a generation regionally? There's just all these questions that you have to ask. It's
where it's an environmental thing or a regional thing, or what's in the air, what's in the water, what's in the ground.
Literally, exactly.
Now, some of
And
the
the
stuff is natural because I tell people if you have any kind of mold sensitivity, don't come to Florida. I mean, it's one big piece of mold.
it is. It's like honestly, just God, I don't know. To me, it's like the more I think about it, it's like why isn't this stuff obvious? But then again, with the whole conservative stuff and the whole vegan stuff, it's like this information is just not public knowledge. Why? Um, why do people have to find out the hard way for these things to get really focused on? And then, of course, at that point, it's just anecdotal at best, right? So,
Yeah, it's kind of like the human condition. Like we don't deal with something until it becomes like the absolute worst problem and or it's like too late to deal with. I don't know. Like if you look historically, that's always just how it is with us. Like Hitler got elected, you know? He didn't like just become a dictator. I
right.
don't know. It just always seems to be like I know I'm using Hitler as an extreme example, but it's just I don't know. It always seems like just us as human beings, we don't get it until it's like right in front of our face or it's too late with anything.
Well, I'm not like that personally, which is why I don't get along with my mother being, my financier for a lot of the situations I'm in because my mother is like that. But yes, as a whole, I think most people are. And I think if I was more like that, I would probably be still in Ohio. I would have lost my apartment. I wouldn't still be out here trying to piece together what I can piece together. Um, but yeah, I guess that is the human condition. It's just frustrating for me because that's not my personal mindset. But yeah, it is generally like I think that's another addition to the whole exhaustion thing too, where the Rust Belt is a very, and I will say even Middle America, which I don't consider Cleveland and and Detroit really Midwest. They're not Midwest in my eyes. Um, but you have parts of that, and they started to get into the real Midwest and like Kansas and stuff like that. And I include those parts of the country too. In the South, oh, I think the South is probably one of the worst because they're one of the lowest funded. And then if you really pay attention, like what's their education rate over there? What are their all these problems that seem to be low poverty related? It's not. I don't think we have a racism problem. I think we have a classism problem.
Mm.
Um, you see a lot of that over in that part of the country. And if you don't have access to certain things or you're stuck in an area, even if you know you could be healthier somewhere else, but you can't afford to leave it, um, it's just interesting. It's just my observations, but I definitely think like I feel so much healthier out west with a lot of things.
Well, so speaking of health, I'm assuming that you're a natural medicine advocate as well.
Yes, well, food I think is a better. Obviously, with the whole veganism thing too, it's like I don't get normal people sick anymore. I obviously still have my medical condition, but
Just typical
I don't
colds and
get
stuff like
cold.
that. You don't get that.
Yeah, and so I've only been full vegan, and I'm actually, by the way, so everybody is aware, I'm not 100% vegan, and I'm not. That's another reason that I definitely don't try to preach my own specific diet to people because I mentioned I have a connective tissue issue. Whenever I say that, I giggle. Sorry.
Why do you
I
giggle when you say connective tissue issue? Oh,
connective
because of
tissue
tissue
issue.
issue? Oh, dude, I just got it.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm whatever. You gotta find humor in it where you can. But
That's
I've
all
had
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
no, it's okay. I laughed first. You're totally fine. No, so like I've had eye muscle surgery. I've had I said 4 hernia repairs. I've had surgery since I was literally like 9 years old. So I've had so many, and it blows people's minds sometimes when I talk about it, which I guess makes sense because I don't. I
Oh,
hope most
I'm
people
so glad you said that actually because I didn't cover this. We'll have to swerve back into this. Is this just Is this something you're born with?
So it can be, but like I said, it doesn't. It's never like it's for different reasons. So for my
So
girlfriend
doctors are
in
still
Ohio,
figuring it out.
with me, I think with me, mine is definitely more adrenaline based. And it's a category of POTS that I've just been trying to understand myself, and I really it's hard like to just wrap your head around, even if you're faced with it daily. So I think it's called I can never pronounce the word hyper I don't know. It's like ADERGENIC. ER. It's based to do with basically like uh so I always mix up the two if it's sympathetic or I'm sorry, fight or flight, whichever one.
Hmm.
But
Well,
I
anyway,
get
I didn't mean to get you down a rabbit hole. I was just wanting to see if
no,
you were
you're
like born
fine.
again or
It's
not.
basically for me it's a surge of adrenaline. So and then
Okay.
I think that I also have had connective tissue and that's all POTS related, but again, it's not always from the same source. So you have a collection of symptoms. And a lot of these people with POTS, they have hyper mobility, which is like the super like double jointed nonsense.
All right.
And that's part of the connective tissue problem too. But for me, like I've always had really strong muscle mass. I was always out riding my horse. I was always really active. So I'm a very muscular person. Like I always was. And I think it hid a lot of symptoms, but I still had ripped hernias. You know, my stomach, I had two hernia. I was born with a hernia, but yeah, basically, point being, my veganism, I have a connective tissue issue. So, so
Got me
I
laughing
take
about it now.
collagen. I a problem with my connective tissue. Yeah, so I'm not 100% vegan, but I will say since I've gone mostly 90% vegan, I don't get the flu. I don't get colds like I used to. My recovery rate is like a million times faster. But yeah, the clean eating thing, it's just I personally have noticed listening to my body, listening to how it's affected my condition. Yeah, I try to just eat whole foods as much as possible. Really, I mean, I like soda. I like I'm bad still too, and if I'm like really broke, like I'm a freaking Reese's cup fanatic. So
Yes, girl.
it it's not.
That's like the candy of choice for me. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really like chocolate. So if there's no like milk free chocolate, I might go and get that. And
Ooh,
also
I'm telling your community.
it's so bad because I'm like, I'm so glad no one ever calls me out on that on my Snapchat because like I'll literally just post like, oh my god, I found a Reese's cup, and I'm like, wait, dude, you're vegan. So,
Right.
so yeah, it's and all down to like promotion of stuff too. Like I try to just, I don't even like to get into the whole different mechanics of all the differences for me because for me my goal is to like reduce the demand for factory farming and like highly processed foods. If
Right.
enough people do it, and I know this is an idealistic stance, my goal is to say no more, you know. um and hopefully eventually these places lose enough money that they realize they're not going to stay in business.
Well, and we can make a difference with that too, because if you look back, people had been saying for years how bad high fructose corn syrup is for you, and
Hmm.
then but they were just out on the fringe, and then it finally got enough traction where it became mainstream to the point where the people in the industry were like, "Hey, we don't have high fructose corn syrup." So I mean, it
Right.
can happen. You just haven't have enough people care. It's like anything else.
No, exactly, and exactly. I even think, crap, what was, the anti-vax stuff. So I did, that was what my favorite interview was. I did, SB 276 was a bill in California where they were pretty much trying to say, your doctors don't know you. The government knows you better than your doctor, and you're not allowed to have your doctor tell you that your child is exempt. Like this was California and the whole socialism thing with the medical stuff. Okay, so my number one thing is if I paid taxes and worked, because I've been on my own since I was 18 and I had a job that long and I've paid taxes to the system for a decade of my life. Just because I'm younger doesn't mean that like I haven't put my fucking earnings in, right?
Right.
So why why do people like me have to worry about being homeless if they don't have a strong family support system like I do that has struggled to help me while I struggle to help myself? Not everyone has that. So a lot of these people are like ending up homeless in a lot of cases. There's mental health as well involved, obviously, but
Right. Right.
California is at the hub of it, right? So the West, a lot of my friends East don't understand this, but especially the non-border states, but like why on God's green earth did Arizona or why would California, where I have a lot of friends who have run into similar and actually worse issues than me with healthcare, and again with the whole homeless crisis just escalating, like how many of those people are me, just in a worse situation with help. These people are losing their homes, they're losing their jobs, they're losing everything they worked for, and they put their time and their money into the system. And California literally just like expanded healthcare to illegal aliens. Like, there's so much more to it than just an immigration problem, okay? Like, there really
Oh
is.
yeah.
But that was like my red pill for socialism. And
Dude, that was gonna be my next question. You nailed
yeah,
it. I was like, how
that
did
is
she go from
literally
Bernie to vegan deplorable now, vegan patriot?
vegan patriot. Yeah, no, that's 1,000,000% how. And so that's kind of been like my MO a little bit, I guess, where I've just kind of pushed for like just question things. Like, I'm not going to say I'm a expert on any of these topics, but I think I understand a lot more because I've been forced to than people, because they don't understand what they're even upset or what's going on.
A lot of
Um,
times when you see these interviews, that's the case. Like if you have a like Fog City Midge is good about that, or Fleckas, they'll go and like do these interviews, and these people that are in these mass protests are just freaking out of their mind, hangry. And he was like, "Okay, what are you here for? What are you protesting?" And most of the time, it's just like there's nothing.
right.
But anyway, regarding your politics, you've done this political journey, and even, I would consider you more right wing, even though maybe you wouldn't consider yourself that. You're more of a free thinker,
Yeah.
and I get that. Do you have any love or support for the current president?
Um, I don't know. Actually, I do, and I've seen some things that even people in my own community for pots, I've been like, guys, listen, like, look at these things that he's kind of started to do. So, I mean, in theory, I don't think Trump is perfect. I think he is. His style isn't my style, as you know. I try to be as unbiased as possible when I conduct interviews, and even in my whole like how I frame things and talk about things, I want people to just look at stuff. I don't want them to fight about it. I want them to say, hey, that doesn't make sense. Let me follow this link and try and figure out on my own time, with my own context, why that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like people to fight, but basically, like with Trump, I was okay. So the Bernie and Trump thing from the get go, I was never a Clinton supporter. However, due to my millennial indoctrination and my lack of understanding in politics, I did vote her over Trump because I mean that was a push, right? Yeah.
Anyway, I'm totally teasing. Continue, please.
I've been told by people, they're like, oh my God, you're so brave for admitting it. I'm like, no, look, I was confused. I never liked her. I was disgusted by her. But I was still so convinced that Trump was bad by the mainstream media that I was ultimately like, no, anybody's still better than him. But I always defended what I could with him, though, at the same time, because I've always kind of been a little bit like that.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, and I have a lot of friends. Like, my friend in Orange County, he's a coder, but he's also an investor. And my friend here in Arizona, he flips houses. And so, like, I kind of have, and
So
even
they're
when I
liking
worked,
this market right now.
exactly. Oh, yeah. Well, with the housing, absolutely. Yeah, no, I was never, they were Trump people, or they kind of red pilled me. And I was trying to start my own company. So basically, how I ended up working for a company like I did, it was ultimately just a glorified pet sitting company, but you had to have skill, you had to have medical skill. And like, I wanted my own version of that. So when
Mm-hmm.
I got into business and working for myself, you kind of see things a little bit differently. Whereas, like, my friends and family in Ohio, they've always worked for someone else. And I don't think you really can actually understand that context unless you're put in that position where you are trying to create your own business. And I think Trump, so my point is, I had a lot of friends that slowly kind of red pilled me. I added that context with my own situations. I was never really like, I did. I was always like, okay, like, the Daily Show or whatever, I would
Mm-hmm.
find ways to make fun of Trump, but I was always like that first person that was like, dude, like, why are you freaking out about Barron? He's a child. Like, get off his dick. Like, calm
Right.
down. That was like pretty much all I was about. And then And then Bernie got ripped off in the primaries, and oh, that was just disgusting. But it really should have shed a light on everyone's eyes how the government was working. I don't care
Right.
if it's the DNC. I think just the government in general. There's an establishment. I put it like this. There's like a school, right? And Bernie and the Tulsies and the Bernies, they're still going to the school, but they're the bullied ones, right? So
Dude, that's a great analogy. I love it.
honestly, because a lot of people still really consider Bernie like to be, anti-establishment, but he's so not anti-establishment. I
Not
mean,
at all. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
in the sense that like he has marketed himself as, or whatever. But I do still genuinely
Yeah,
think
Bernie
Bernie
would
has.
be the establishment if he had his way.
If he did, I still think though that honestly his intent. I won't say now I know because I think there's been more stuff that's been undercovered about Bernie himself and like the whole he's a capitalist at this point and he's still preaching, anti-capitalist rhetoric, which
Bro,
is
you
just
can't have 4 houses and make millions off of your
yeah,
book and not
yeah,
pay any taxes and talk about, what a man of the
right,
people you are. I mean, that's just where I
right.
am with him.
Nope, nope, and I agree with that. But the bottom line with him that I think people really like and what I really liked is that he never changed his points. Okay, like
No,
he's
he hasn't
always
changed his points
been.
in 30 years. He's been like right where he is.
There's something to say about that. Whatever
No,
there is to
I'm
say about
total
it, there's
respect to that.
something.
That
But
doesn't mean I agree with him, but I get it. Well,
right,
same thing with Trump. If you look at old Trump interviews from when he was in his 30s and they were interviewing him in the 80s, he's still like, these countries are ripping us off. And I mean, it's the same thing he's always, said.
well, exactly. And I mean, like, I think when I was really watching stuff, I actually pitted Trump and Clinton equally as much as like how much I disliked everybody. Clinton, though, my God, like her stuff is obvious, but Trump's was usually edited crap. Or
Right.
I mean, and he does lean more Democratic, but or he used to like in certain
No, he
circumstances.
did. Yeah.
That's why he's a populist Republican. Really, he's not
Yeah, and
like
I
an
I
old
tell people that I'm
school.
like, if you're looking for like a true blood conservative, he's not your guy. He's kind of
No,
like a meat and potatoes, like common sense, what's gonna work for the most amount of people kind of a thing,
I think he's more libertarian than anything ultimately, but
Yeah.
I think most people really are more libertarian when they really understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, because
Um,
like most people just want to tend to their business and have other people leave them alone. I mean, that's like
exactly.
libertarianism at its core.
At its core, but then we have the whole problem with like the literal like, monopolistic free market and Amazon.
Yes.
So that's when you don't want to be labeling yourself as a libertarian.
I
And
can't
even
tell you how many
from
dust ups I've had on social media because of the Tarian and my publitarian name. And
oh
you can't
yeah,
call yourself a libertarian and agree with this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not a libertarian. It's an ideal. I like these two ideals mashed together. And I don't
right.
know.
So have you ever heard of the term paleo conservative?
I have.
Or sorry, paleo libertarian.
I've heard of paleo conservative. I haven't heard of paleo libertarian.
I was just talking to someone about this the other day. I was like, like, do you think free thinkers are more like paleo libertarian? Because it's true, like a lot of free thinkers tend to lean right, but they're free thinkers, so they're the right is more logical, and the older people get, the more right leaning they tend to be.
Right.
Um, if they keep educated and they want to keep like talking about stuff, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that stop learning, they're still liberals. But you can be all different varieties of it. But I do think you tend to just get more on the right leaning spectrum, whether it be fiscally or conservative or fiscally or socially. I just think that the more you pay attention, there's obvious reasons why people tend to just evolve into more right leaning policies and ideologies. Um,
if we stripped away like the media noise and the indoctrination, and we would give people individually and just give them real world examples and be like, hey, do you want to take care of the poor people? Sure, we should take care of the poor people. Okay, how much money are you going to give to take care of the poor
right,
people?
right.
Oh, well, we should all do it. No, no, how much are you going to give?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
once they
Well,
start saying, "Oh, you're gonna take my money," yeah, I'm gonna take your money.
well, I've even heard like who is it? Sunny Hostin, is that what her name is on The View? The pretty black lawyer. She was talking about, like, this was like pre-Trump election, like it was during the, the whole election and everything, 2016 election, but
Right.
I think it was like 2015 maybe. She did this interview where she was like, not interview, but she was on The View, and she was like, oh yeah, well, I wouldn't mind giving more of my money if it helped the needy. So again, like the whole concept of it, and she's a lawyer. She was a lawyer, so she's not stupid. Um, but it's bottom line at the end of the day, it's not your money. And like communities need to be strengthened. I think a lot of basic, like on the ground stuff with your communities, the family unit needs to be encouraged, not demonized.
Right.
Um, Communities themselves, like people don't always rally together, but I still trust that over the government just taking control of everything.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And to that point, you mentioned earlier that when you've done these interviews, and we didn't really cover that, so I'd like for you to speak to that and get my audience up to speed. You do some citizen journalism yourself, don't you? And do interviews and video interviews and stuff like that?
I try when I can. Obviously, like I think you saw the other day, I didn't get much because this lady like wasted my time in the direct sunlight, and so I started to get really dizzy, and I had to leave. Um, I will say in Texas it was nice because the guy I was shooting with, we would take turns, and even if I kind of got dizzy, I could still hold the camera. But yeah, I had to leave early. I was alone and I didn't feel good. So it just depends on like if I'm able to, but I'm trying to get more into it. And the best by far, the best event I went to was the impeach Trump rally. And I still have to upload a lot of that footage to my channel. But yeah, I think if all you have to do is literally go into a high energy area, like, and this was at night, the impeach Trump rally that I went to, and I didn't have to look at people in the eyes, but I will tell you, like, the other day when I went to the Women's March rally, oh my God, I was talking to my mom about this. You don't have to be leaning any direction. You just have to go and record it, and you kind of don't need anything more than that. Like, I kind of, to an extent, like, did a lot of it to, like, prove to myself that these weren't actors. Like, this is real. This is really happening at these rallies. Like, I was questioned at the impeach Trump rally. Well, first and foremost, there's Dante Filipino. He's on my Instagram. But he was this, I think he's 17, young MAGA kid, was just looking for open dialogue. And
Right.
people were just shitting on him left and right because he had a hat on. And, you know, you and I, we talk about music. I'm a music nerd. I'm a Warped Tour princess. So I'm a big band merch nerd. So I have my lip piercing. I have my beanie. I had an Alkaline Trio hoodie on. I looked like a liberal.
You look like one
So
of them.
exactly. I don't want to look like anybody in particular, period, because I don't think once people see a hat or something, they don't want to talk to you. And
Yeah, Vince Dow did an interview like that in D.C. He would come up to people and go like, and you know, he's Filipino too. He would say, "Hey, what do you think of me?" And they'd be like, "Oh, you seem like a nice guy." And then he'd like put the MAGA hat on. He'd be like, "Now, what do you think of me?"
yes.
And they would like, "Rah!" You know? And I'm like,
Yeah,
so I
it's
get it. I
crazy.
get what you're saying.
And I think like I got some of the best footage that night because like really this poor kid was just walking around, literally just, he was a child ultimately, legally, and you had these old people, like I yelled at an old lady because I was following him around. We didn't go together, but
Oh, I was gonna be my next question. Did you guys like plan a meetup or anything? Or
nope, not at all. I was solo, and I was just walking around, and I caught, I'm gonna focus on kind of the discord and the people fighting, because obviously that's usually where there's a Trump person, and not because they're initiating it 90% of the time either. And so I don't know, I saw some people, and I saw this kid, or I think I saw his hat. I followed him, and I kind of was like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, we were just kind of chatting, and I followed him around. I watched him and recorded him trying to start these conversations with people, and like, oh my God, like this one, on my one page, I still have so much more I have to post, but the best one was this war vet, and he was pretty much just like, he wouldn't even shake the kid's hand. And he was like, well, he was pretty much saying that he should be serving his country. And like, this kid was like, literally like, okay, but I'm here. I'm talking to you guys. I'm just trying to get you guys to talk to me. And they wouldn't even talk to him really. And this little old lady, oh my God, I'm just kind of trying to be neutral in the back, recording all this, silently thinking WTF, right?
Right.
And this little old lady like turns and like is just being like, I don't even remember what she said, but she was just being really mean to this person, this
Freaking
kid.
boomers.
Literally, I said that.
Oh,
That's
did you?
what I said. Freaking boomer. I think I said that at some point, but I was literally like, excuse you. Like, I literally was just like, I was defending the shit out of him because I was so bothered by the fact he wasn't even talking to her. She was just I think she was just telling him to leave. But she found this reason to just jump on in on a conversation that had nothing to do with her to start with, and was
What?
just like,
Liberals don't do
like,
that.
absolutely not. Clearly not. And I will say, there's classical liberals. There's different varieties of liberal. I don't.
Yeah, I'm
know.
sorry. I should differentiate. I'm not talking about the classical
Well,
liberal. Classical liberals would be
whatever the
like
hell
on our
these
side of the
people
aisle.
are, whoever these people are, and like even like God, I was doing. This is all the same night too. So there were 3 other specific situations that didn't have anything to do with Dante. They were just my own experiences. Well, so after I yelled at that little old lady, though, I had a girl come up to me and she's like, are you a libertarian? I'm like, I think I lean more libertarian. So we were talking. She's a more left-leaning libertarian. I'm a more right-leaning libertarian. So she was pretty much commending me on the fact that I did step in and defend this kid. So if someone more left can identify that as a problem,
Interesting.
how many people that see stuff like that are really going to like realize, wake up, like what these people that are screaming and crazy and outrageous, like, do they have anything to say or are they just parroting stuff?
Yeah, typically what you see is parroting or talking points. That's what I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about before when people like yourself do the citizen journalism or they do ask the questions or doing these interviews and or especially the classic, well, Donald Trump is a racist and you support a racist. Okay, name me one thing that he's done that's
Right?
racist. Uh,
Dude.
My TV said he was. Or
Well,
he said Mexicans are rapists. No, he didn't.
no, but watch a video, and the Charlottesville conversation is the one, like, the first time that I was, like, literally like, wait a second. And this was, again, after I
The
was...
very fine people
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah.
I think
No,
that
he
really
did not
breaks
say that, and that's another one that gets parroted too. He said that white supremacists were very fine people. No, he didn't.
No, but it's crazy because like that, I think a lot of people that switched over, that was like the first thing that they saw. And I was definitely, that was one of the first things I saw where as what would have been considered a Trump voter sympathizer, at least when I was, before I was on the Trump train, at all, period. I definitely like, I still probably would have been considered more of a Trump sympathizer than anything.
Okay.
And even then though, I still was like, yeah, well, okay, he's still not good enough for me. And then, like, the more I watched, I'm like, how much has been edited to make him look a fool?
Yeah.
Like, so much. And why?
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff that he's trying to do is legitimately good stuff. Why would you suppress the good stuff? If nobody's perfect, and that's cool to call people out, like, you should, but, like, why suppress the good things he's done? Like, for his medical stuff, I think, what was it? So for me, I have a pre-existing condition, obviously, and when I went home for the summer, because I have coverage in Arizona, they wouldn't cover me in Ohio with my coverage, but because I was residentially in Arizona, I couldn't get state health coverage in Ohio. So my parents were trying to look up, temporary insurance for me that would have just been better in general. And so a lot of the confusion was, okay, did Trump get rid of this or that? Because that was just spilled out everywhere, right? Like he doesn't care if you have a pre-existing condition, like he's making it so, insurance companies can turn you away. Okay, so first and foremost, no. There's a layer to it though, at least in Ohio. And this might be state there's also too, it's not just Trump, there's state stuff interlocked too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think people always forget that. So I don't know, there's a lot of complexities to it. And that's the number one most important thing for me is just getting people to try and just be like, listen, there is not one scapegoat for a lot of these issues. There is a system. We have a systemic problem with so many of these different things.
Right.
It's not one thing. It's not one president. And I've seen Trump put more effort into protecting Americans than any other politician. And you asked me about my Patriot name, and that's why. We need to be focused on the people that are here. Or I make this analogy, being an animal girl. I go into dog shelters all the time. Okay. So if I were to adopt every single animal in these shelters, I would feel really good, right? But if I took all these animals home with me right now just to feel good, my animals wouldn't get fed. My girls wouldn't get fed. I wouldn't take care of myself. And
Oh, damn. Yeah, that's good.
ultimately, you can't help others if you don't help yourself first.
Yep.
You're all going to burn at that point. And it's like, to me, that's so cut and clear. Like, I've actually posted that analogy so many times, like in debates, because I used to debate a lot, and then I started to be like, oh, these aren't a bunch of internet trolls, they're real people. I should be quiet and just observe. But the TPUSA crowd really kind of has their nose in the air for a lot of things. And so I would reach out to people and I would get on things, and like they were the ones who I was like, okay, I think they're kind of real people. But like everyone else, I'm like, are you internet trolls? Like, honestly. So I kind of was like reckless abandon with my commenting on some places, and I talked too much, in my opinion, because I'm not really someone who, if I take you seriously, I'm curious, so I don't talk as much. But like in these circumstances, like, yeah, I would throw that out there when I started to really get onto the whole like Patriot train. I'm like, listen, like, are you seriously? And then people would be like, well, you can't compare dogs to people, and I'm like, it's the same fucking concept, dude. Like,
Yeah. That's
like,
why analogies are analogies. They work like that. I mean, yeah, it's exactly the same. I think it's a great analogy.
thank you. I do too, and I will continue using it for the rest of my life because I can't unsee it now. And I think anyone who, God, was it Ashley St. Clair? She was talking, how can you be vegan and not pro-life or something like that? And she had a point, but these people are so tribal with their views that
Yes.
it's they isolate their problems and then justify them without looking at how everything else has a similarity. It's crazy.
Well, we pretty much answered you pretty much answered all the questions I had for you.
Am I like the longest interview you've ever had? Oh my
I
god, it's
think,
so much.
yep, I think you just broke the record. I think this is going to be a two-parter.
Okay, sweet. Damn. So what was it? Ruby was the other one, right? The
Yeah,
long
Ruby
one.
was the other one. I think you just killed Ruby's record. And Ruby's, I'm pretty sure, is a listener to the podcast anyway. So yeah, sorry, Ruby.
God. Well, I was listening and I'm just like, geez, like I everything she was saying, like I identified with. So I think the longer conversations come with the people that have a complex thought process on all of this, and when there's interviews, and I'm not saying other people don't, but obviously there's just so many layers to all this stuff. We could literally sit here and break it down forever.
Well, yeah, and especially in your situation, because there's so much to unpack. I mean, we've got the
Mm-hmm.
medical aspect about this. We've got our patriotism, our veganism, our citizen journalism. We didn't even cover your thoughts on the Second Amendment.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was actually just gonna bring that up briefly.
Go for it.
Guys, check out Motivated Armed Girls of America on Instagram. I'm trying to contribute to that while still doing all the other plethora of things I'm doing. But I had a very, very traumatizing situation. I'm a blonde girl with two small dogs living in the city. Okay, I don't have a boyfriend. I've had some seriously scary stuff happen to me, and I will tell you, even with my security system, like, damn, the cops still take 40 minutes sometimes to show up. And the number one thing that scares me is that we are going to not be allowed to protect ourselves. So I don't even own a gun. I'm working on finding resources to learn, and I mean, this is probably the most cut and dry one for me. There's not really much to it if you look at it, but I'm very pro 2A. I'm very self-defense, advocacy type of a vibe. And this is me coming from a super, super liberal hippie college town, um, where no one in my family shoots, and nobody's really interested in it, but I don't know how either, but still would love to own a firearm. But yeah, no, that's really simple. That's pretty cut and dry. 2A though is probably like definitely one of the strongest views I have, and that's why it's just, once you think about it, I don't think anybody should be for banning guns.
Amen. Historically, it just never ends well. Well, anyway, I think we've pretty much covered everything. Any final thoughts you would like to leave for my audience?
Not really, just pay attention. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already have reached that point, so go you. And then I will say personally, the most frustrating thing as a free thinker that I'm sure any free thinkers on here can really appreciate, we are an oppressed class.
Right.
And I notice a lot of the extremes, the sides, they really want you to bend because they know you're flexible, but just be flexible for yourself. What makes sense to you. Don't be flexible because someone's pressuring you. Look stuff up if you're interested and it doesn't make sense. Absolutely research, but just don't fall on one side of the spectrum because of a tribal need or desire. Just what makes sense to you, and then definitely research it. Be prepared, and do it for you, not for fitting in somewhere with someone else with what they have to say. I think a problem.
I like that. You know what? That's a good closer right there. I think that's where we're going to leave it. So thank you all very much for listening to this edition of Publitarian Podcast. And to my guest, Vegan Patriot, I'm assuming people can reach out to you on Instagram. What other platforms are you on? Or how can people get a hold of you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, so I'm still in the phases of like kind of switching over my personal names for everything. I have a TikTok, which we can talk about that another day. TikTok is
You're so hip.
going to be very interesting. It's going to reach a lot of people, but we should be afraid of it at the same time.
Because it's owned by China?
Yep, yeah, literally, exactly. That's why, exactly. So I have vegan, it's going to be vegan_patriot. That's my Instagram account. And then I do have a BitChute too, which I'm still figuring out how to do because I don't really understand it. Same thing, I think, with the underscore. Okay. And then Twitter, I literally hate Twitter so much. So I have a personal that some political people follow me on, but I'm probably going to make another one if I do. So
yeah, I wouldn't give out the personal if it were me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I don't have a Facebook, like for the same reasons you don't.
Right.
So I don't mess with Facebook. I don't have any merch. I'm not cool like that. But if anybody has like stories or, kind of wants to maybe even start some projects or has insight, definitely reach out. My Instagram is like where I live. Like you said, for some reason, just because it's owned by Facebook, like I live on Instagram. Yep. But I hate Facebook.
I get it. That's me too.
It's the easiest place to get a hold of me. I'm always on it. But yeah, I think that's really it. It's just the TikTok, the BitChute. Oh, I'm on Parler. And okay. I think I still have my regular name though. So
maybe make another one before we do that.
I'll say, how about this? Like for now, while I'm in the transitioning stages, if everybody just wants to like find me on Instagram and like shoot me a DM, prove to me you're not a sociopath, and I'll let you in on my private stuff, like with Parler and stuff like that.
That sounds like good, solid thinking to me.
Yeah. Let me vet you out first, and no offense to everybody, but just,
We're just assuming you all are a bunch of creeps.
Honestly, yeah. No offense. Probably not most of you, but some of you. Definitely.
And I think that will do it for us on Publitarian Podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I am publitarian@gmail.com or thepublitarian@gmail.com. I'm on Parler, however you say it, as well. I'm always Publitarian on all the other social medias. And you guys take care of yourself, and we'll see you on the next podcast. See you later.
Bye.
You've been listening to Publitarian Podcast. Copyright 2020.